Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a very popular, or I should say, a very special this year in perfume because we are going to highlight my birth year, the year of 1985. And I love 80s fragrances, if you haven't noticed from my collection, and I'm constantly adding more. In fact, I did an unboxing of one that I will be showing you in this video very soon that was released in the year 1985. So again, these videos are kind of a fun way for me to highlight fragrances that came out in years gone by in a way that I can talk about a bunch of different fragrances in a unique format that is not some, 30-second top 10 list. In a way that I can, kind of stay true to myself. I was watching some other YouTubers, and occasionally I'll watch other fragrance reviews outside of my normal circle, let's say. And it's funny because listening to them and listening to me speak has to be like two total polar opposites. I heard one of the guys say things like, oh, your likes and your opinion is going to steer the things that I talk about. And it's funny because I'm actually the exact opposite. I'm just taking you guys along on my journey and showing you the things that I like. And if you get some value out of this content, great. And if you don't, well, too bad. I'm going to go wherever I want to go on the fragrance journey, and that's that. And if this is not your thing, then you can go watch some of the other more popular YouTubers. I'm not doing this for the likes. I'm not doing it to get YouTube famous or anything like that. I'm not doing it to make money, and I'm definitely not doing it for the free bottles. I am doing this strictly to share my love and passion of fragrances with you guys, and that's kind of my motto, if you will. So let's talk about the year 1985. Other than me being born, some other things happened. Gorbachev became the Soviet leader. There was a hijacking of a TWA flight 847. Which apparently was big news back then. So as you can see, a completely different world. I think Microsoft released the first version of Windows in 1985, so serious different world. I picked a couple songs that, for me, would represent 85. Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. You probably want to sing it as soon as you hear that line, the name. Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. You probably want to sing it as soon as you hear the line. At least the song pops up in my head immediately. And as far as movies go, Back to the Future was the #1 movie by far. That was released in July of 85 over the 4th of July weekend. Back when, imagine being able to go to a movie theater and not get inundated with propaganda. It must have been nice. I wish I was alive in the 80s. Rambo First Blood came out in May of 85. Beverly Hills Cop was also very popular, but that was released, I believe, in December of 84, the previous year, but it did gross a lot of money in 85. Okay, so that's just kind of a couple highlights of the year. Let's get into the fragrances, but before we do, let's do what we always do, and let's talk about scent of the day. And today, the duck, Rich Mitch and I, Ram Duck, our scents are synced because we are both in Coros. And this is a vintage with the silver shoulders, but it's not a Parfums Corp or anything like that. I think it's a Gucci PPR era. Somebody who is well-versed will be able to tell us. Let me just do a quick spray because this is my scent of the day, and my God, I love this fragrance. It's masculine, powerful, animalic. I'm going to do a comparison video between the different versions once I get my Charles of the Ritz. Hopefully, once I get my Charles of the Ritz, fingers crossed. I can't even cross my fingers. I'm getting old. So once I get my Charles of the Ritz, I'll do a comparison between the Gucci PPR, the Charles of the Ritz, and the Parfums Corp. I don't think I have a Sanofi bottle, which is interesting because I don't think Rich Mitch does either. So maybe they're hard to come by. Oh my God. It is just... You know what Coros is like to me? I've said this before. Well, maybe I haven't said it this way, but Coros to me feels like, you know, you are just like a moon rotating a planet, or a planet rotating a sun, and you're just captured by that gravitational pull. It just draws me in a way that absolutely makes no logical sense. This is an illogical fragrance to me because, and I know I've said this before, it just touches a part of your brain that, you know, feels like you're not in control of, if that makes sense. Like it was formed 100,000 years ago. The reptilian brain, the flight or fight, you know, feature that's baked into all human beings. It feels like this fragrance just is an arrow through all of the logical, you know, thought processes, the thinking, the things that, you know, make us human, and just touches straight to that animalic side of things. You know, it ties us to all the other animals of the world, all the other mammals of the world that have brains, whether they're big or small or whatever they are. You know, we are all linked in some way, and this just feels like, because it's so primal, it's the only word I can think of. It's primal. It's it reminds me of like the cavemen days, you know. It feels that way, and I absolutely love it. I love wearing it in public. I love the looks that I get. I don't care whether people like it or not. Too bad. That's their problem. This is a take no holds bar masculine. I would be hard pressed not to put this as the greatest masculine of all time. There, I said it. And I kind of laugh because, you know, I read some of the reviews and these young kids go on there and go, oh, this is the worst fragrance of all time. I spray it just for my friends so we can laugh about it. You have to have some experience. You have to have some heft under your belt. You have to live a little bit to understand Koros. It's not something that some 20-year-old today is going to spray that is following the blue trend and understand. Maybe if you were 20 and 81 when it came out, you know, you would have worn this and loved it. But the young kids today, unless they are men up here, not just because they look like men at 20 years old, but you have to be kind of a man in thought to wear that. Any age group can wear Koros, by the way. In my opinion, I think it's ageless, timeless, all that stuff. But I'll do a comparison video on that one day. Let's talk about the fragrances from 85. That's from 81. It's just my scent of the day. So let's start with a fragrance that I talked a little bit about, but I love wearing this fragrance in spring. It's called Rockford by Atkinsons. Now, Rockford, here, let me see if I can show you the bottom without actually spilling this juice, because it is a splash. And I actually got this bottle, I believe from Le Parfum in the last year or so. So look at that dinky little sticker. And look at the little bear on the front. So this is like this aromatic, very, it reminds me of spring. Like I said, it reminds me of, you know, of blooming, of, there's a beautiful vetiver in the base. There's a masculine lavender. There's this floral carnation thing that mixes with the mace and sandalwood and just gives off this very classy, very, you know, almost like in touch with nature, if you will. That's why I say it reminds me of spring. And there's a fragrance that is compared to this, which I actually have, and I do see the comparison. There are some differences, but it's called Boss Elements. That is also discontinued. By the way, there's going to be a lot of discontinued fragrances on this list. This is 1985. So this is discontinued, but you can still be had for a respectable price. If you like Boss Elements, or if you're familiar with Boss Elements, this is definitely one to put on your to sniff list. If you like classy, old school masculines, you know, these two are kind of, polar opposites of each other. This is shock in your face, you know, this is heavy shock factor. Whereas this is classy, reserved, smooth, you know. You don't want to offend. You don't want to be the star of the show and you know, everyone turn their head when you walk. You just want to kind of blend in seamlessly. That's what Rockford does. It's a very pleasant vintage fragrance. And ultimately, I will be doing full reviews on all of these, but that's one to definitely put on the to sniff list. Now, one that I smelled recently that came out in '85, I just got it. It's basically a new pickup for me, is this. And I got 5 of these little 10 ml Discovery atomizers. These are the EDT composition. And as you can see, this is R. de Capucci. So Capucci's first name was Robert, if I'm not mistaken, so hence the R. de Capucci. And you can see the batch code imprinted right now. And this fragrance was created by Francois Caron, who was the first wife of Pierre Bourdon, who created this. By the way, Pierre Bourdon's name is going to show up later. If you know what's coming, you know your fragrances from '85. And so Francois Caron was Pierre Bourdon's first wife, and she created a couple fragrances I really like Charles Jourdan Un Homme, and she created this. And I was very curious about this because there is a Capucci fragrance that I absolutely adore called Punjab. Very hard to find. And Capucci Pour Homme, I was kind of, it's not really my style. So I thought maybe I would give this a try. I'm not going to take it out because it's a little bit of a hassle to get it back in, but I can smell it from here, from the atomizer. If you like citrusy fragrances that are a little bit dirty, but still pretty much this stayed pretty clean on my skin. Someone said it's animalic on Fragrantica. I didn't really get that. I just got this very clean citrus. There's some earthiness because it's a Chypre, but I like my Chypres dirty. I like Diaghilev and stuff like that. So for me, this is kind of, I'm glad to have it as a reference, but, you know, maybe I'll even sell off a couple of these if it comes down to it. But glad to be able to smell it. It is the vintage. You can see the short ingredient list right there. So, you know, these kind of things will be sought after at some point in time. Then we're going to talk about one that I don't have a full bottle of, but I will be doing a comparison video with its parent fragrance, and that is called Antaeus Sport. This is a sample that was very kindly sent to me by Rich Mitch. And this is a flanker of Antaeus called Sport Cologne Spray. It came out in '85. It was discontinued in '86, if I'm not mistaken. So it didn't last long at all. Didn't do well. I have yet to even spray this because I'm going to do a comparison. I'm going to wear Antaeus on one hand, and I'm going to wear Antaeus Sport on another, and I'm going to do a comparison video for you guys. But it's supposed to be a sport version of Antaeus, go figure. So we will do a comparison video soon. Okay, next, we're going to go on to a Caron. So speaking of Caron, Francois Caron, who created our de Capucci, and a couple others, we're going to go on to this, which was also created by Francois Caron, but with another perfumer called Akiko Kamai. I'm not very familiar with her work, other than the fact that she did some hit fragrances like Rouge Hermès Eau Delicate. She did Parfum de Hermès in '84, and she did the original Rouge Hermès from 2000, which were some hit female fragrances. And she did a diptyque, which I'm not familiar with, Oyedo EDT. But this is a fragrance I love, and I love wearing this in the spring and summer as well, believe it or not. Some people say it reminds them of more like a fresher, aromatic Bel Ami, and I kind of see what they're saying. Bel Ami came out a year after this, so maybe this was a bit of an inspiration. This is the vintage bottle, by the way. I don't have a cap because it is a tester, hence the demonstration right now. And so that's how they wrote the name of the fragrance. If you're looking for it in Fragrantica, if you just type in LE space 3, it'll come up. But Third Man is how it's affectionately known in the industry. And this is this very satisfying lavender, you know, floral. There is an anise note, but it's not super sharp like it is in Francois Caron's other fragrance that I love, Charles Jourdan Un Homme. The anise is much heavier there, but you can see the blueprint that she kind of liked to work with masculines. There's oak moss, there's tonka bean, there is geranium, so I guess you could consider this kind of like fougere, but it's a very modern fougere for the 1980s. And I believe they just recently discontinued this, which is a shame, because when you could buy it, even in the new bottle, it was a great value for money, because you could pick that up for 30 bucks or something for 100 ml. Oh, God, Koros. It just does it for me. I don't know what to say. But Third Man, if you can find this old bottle, get it. It has the amped up oak moss like most of the older bottles do. And this was an unsprayed tester that I scored, and I will be giving this some proper wearings once the weather turns warm. It was freezing last night in Texas. It's February 18th, and we got a cold spell, so probably one of the last ones of the year. Okay, now I want to talk to you about a fragrance that I have never shown you guys before. I don't think I have anyways. It's very special to me. Because this fragrance was purchased by my grandfather, who is no longer with us, for my dad, and my dad ended up giving it to me because he didn't really wear cologne. He wore aftershave. He wore Paco Rabanne Pour Homme aftershave, but this is a cologne, and so he ended up giving it to me, and I do cherish it. I'll show you a fragrance it's similar to, since very few people know about this fragrance. This is a Shulton version of Old Spice Leather Cologne. And so there's the Shulton right now. And this fragrance, it's not even listed in Fragrantica. There is a listing in Parfumo, but there's no notes. But to me, I get this oily leather with patchouli. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's a simple composition. You can see it's got the old style star cap. If you knew old bottles of Old Spice, the star cap was popular. It's probably the most hilariously dinky caps you could ever imagine. But the fragrance is still good. There is some spice. It smells like maybe there's some cinnamon, you know, kind of baked in. But what it reminds me of, the only fragrance that comes to mind, they're not identical, but they're both oily leather fragrances, is this. If you're familiar with this, Farina Kolnik Juchten. This is one of the most famous leathers of all time. And obviously, I think the quality of this is better than the Old Spice. But the fact that I'm even able to compare, you know, a vintage Old Spice leather cologne to one of the greatest leathers of all time really speaks volumes to the composition back then. I know nothing about the perfumer. I know nothing about the notes. That's just my initial impression, but it's a special fragrance to me. And again, I'm going off of Parfumo. So in case you guys didn't know, all of the years and all that good stuff, it's all pulled from Parfumo. So if you see something else on Fragrantica or Base Notes, don't attack the messenger. I'm only going off of Parfumo. I just figured it would be easier. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Poison. And this is one where Fragrantica disagrees, is why I said that earlier, because they actually have this release, which is the Esprit de Parfum. They use the word Esprit, very similar to Extrait. So Dior did this thing, they called it the Esprit de Parfum, And YSL did this thing. They called it the Secret de Parfum. And Guerlain did this thing where they called it they called their EDTs Parfum de Toilette. So there were a lot of weird words going on in the 80s before they kind of settled on EDT, EDP, Extrait, Parfum, all that good stuff. So this is the Esprit de Parfum, and you can tell it's a vintage because it actually has the words Christian Dior, which they retired that name decades ago, I believe. I think now it's just Dior. Also, you can see here on the back, the 78% volume right now. And I got this from Anouge. He said this was the last one that he had. As a collector, you know, this is a heavy women's fragrance, but it's a little bit harder for me to wear personally rather than something like Opium, which I talked about yesterday, which I love. It's in my top 10 fragrances of all time. This, it has one of the most narcotic, tuberose, floral notes I think I've ever smelled. It does share some similarities with Opium in the fact that it uses fruity notes with incense and cloves and cinnamon. That's kind of the, that's the notes that are shared between the two. But where this differs is the florals are amped up here. And some of the most beautiful florals you will smell. There's jasmine, there's rose, there's orange blossom, there's tuberose. The tuberose here is probably the biggest floral that I get. And there's honey, and you know I love honey. There's also this fruit accord, which almost feels like they've blended up a bunch of different fruits, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, plums, and just smattered it on a, you know, poison sandwich, if you will. Don't eat a poison sandwich, by the way. But, I mean, look at the bottle. In the shape of the apple that fell from the tree. I mean, great symbolism. Great bottle with the crystal cap. And this doesn't feel very cheap. It feels well done. Back when they spent time on details, which I appreciate. Okay, now I'm going to show you a fragrance that no one talks about. Well, not nobody, because I'm talking about it, but a lot of people don't talk about this fragrance. And that is a fragrance from Perry Ellis, and it's called Cologne for Men. Okay, so look at this right here, Cologne for Men. If you go on eBay and look for Perry Ellis, you will find a couple different versions. You'll see one that says Cologne for Men like this, and you'll see one that doesn't say Cologne for Men. The one that doesn't say Cologne for Men, the one that just says Perry Ellis EDT or whatever it is shite. Do not get that. You want the Cologne for Men version because, oh man, it also came in this little squat looking bottle, which is on Fragrantica. But as long as it says Cologne for Men, whether it's a squat bottle or a bigger 100 ml, you're good to go. This came out in '85, of course, or it wouldn't be on the list. This is a 75 ml bottle. And this is Parfum's Stern Inc. distributed. I can't read that. I'm not going to try to do this on a video. Anyways, just get the Cologne for Men version. I got this for 40 bucks or something for 75 ml. This is an amazing composition. This is more animalic than, like, you know, what was I saying they said is animalic earlier? Oh, the Art de Capucci they said is animalic. No, that's not animalic. This is more animalic. Not Koros animalic, but animalic. How many times did I just say animalic there? But I will say that there is a feel, even though it's not listed, when you first spray for the first 30 minutes, there is a heavy feel of cumin. There's no cumin listed, but just understand kind of what you're in for. There's heavy cumin, there's heavy oak moss, and then there's this green twist that mixes with the resins. There's a Papanax, there's civet, there's galbanum and lemon verbena, so it's kind of green and citrusy, and there's amber, there's vetiver, there's benzoin, there's lavender, but then there's civet and incense, but then there's this mysterious cumin opening. And, you know, for this type of perfumery, for $40 as a vintage collector, this is a no-brainer. Absolutely no-brainer. You have to have balls to wear this. You have to have some intestinal fortitude. I'm not saying a woman can't wear it. A woman can wear it as long as she has the intestinal fortitude to wear something like this, because these two, you know, remember how I mentioned Art de Capucci and Coros are completely different? These two kind of do the same thing. They're shock factor fragrances. They're heavy. They're masculine. They're confident to me. And so, yeah, Perry Ellis Cologne for Men is one to look out. After a couple years, they changed the Cologne for Men. And, you know, with that came a reformulation. So this is what you want to look for. Okay, now let's go to one that I wish I had a vintage bottle of, but I have a current formulation, and I'm kind of, everyone I know and respect loves this fragrance. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say anything bad about it, because I'm almost like I'm not trusting my nose at this point, but I'm not the biggest fan. That is Lauder for Men. If I'm going to wear a Lauder, I would actually rather wear my vintage Azure, and I would rather wear my vintage Youth Dew, or even vintage Knowing. So it's a very distinct smell. It's a smell that I think you know, when you smell it, you will probably go, okay, I've smelled that before on guys. It's sold as this, you know, professional man on Wall Street, you know, look with the overcoat and the, you know, very 1980s. The galbanum in this is beautiful. If you're a galbanum fan, and you wanted a masculine fragrance with beautiful galbanum in the opening, galbanum and juniper, which I'm a fan of because it adds this sprightliness, this freshness, and clary sage. So almost like the holy trinity of aromatic fragrances right there. Check this one out. I wish I had the vintage with the oak moss turned up. I should have went for a 50 ml vintage rather than a 100 ml current formulation. But you know, that's what happens when you don't follow your own rules. But that is Lauder for Men. That one has to grow on me. Another no-brainer if you're just into collecting fragrances from the past and you don't necessarily need a vintage is this. This can be had for $16 right now for 100 ml. Roger and Gallet Open. Okay, so this is called Open. And this is, the easiest way to describe this is a fresh, bright tobacco. So if you want to wear like an aromatic tobacco for the summertime, for warmer weather, this is what I would recommend, because this has this citrus opening with old school lavender. Then there's thyme and sage, which go beautiful on chicken, by the way. And then tobacco, vetiver, and patchouli. But it's so fresh and bright. And even though the tobacco is tobacco, it's not tobacco leaf to my nose. It's still very wearable in the warmer weather to me. Much more wearable than trying to wear some of the really heavy tobacco fragrances, you know? So check this out. Open by Roger and Gallet. Great value for money, by the way. I don't know how they make money selling this stuff for 16 bucks. But I guess that's at discounters. So don't pay retail, whatever that is for that. Okay, now we're going to go to a Annick Goutal, and they changed the name of this house to Goutal. They dropped the Annick. So this is a vintage bottle, and as you can see, this is called Sables. So Sables was a fragrance that Annick Goutal actually made for her husband. It was made for him, and came out in '85, and this is one of the best Immortelle fragrances you can buy. This and Sunshine Man are two of my favorite Immortelles. There's also a fragrance called The Afternoon of a Fawn by Eldo that is a fantastic Immortelle you know, version or take on Immortelle. But this is probably the closest to, you know, what natural Immortelle smells like. This has this very, you know, Immortelle can be very multifaceted. Sometimes it can smell like tobacco. Sometimes it can smell like dry hay. I always get this brown, you know, fall association with Immortelle. This is a fantastic fall fragrance, but it's also very soothing because it has black tea and amber. So it is masculine. There's the little bit of spiciness too because of the cinnamon and pepper. So those add the spicy element. But the sandalwood is just gorgeous. The Immortelle is gorgeous. The tea adds this comforting, you know, very, you know, woosah type feel. Yeah, if you just want to kind of be put at ease but wear something extremely elegant, check out Sables. And I don't know if there's been a reformulation. I'm glad to have an older bottle. This is 100 ml. And so this, or the bottle that I think came before this, which was, it's shown on Fragrantica. You can see it has more detail around the outside than this was. But I like a house that has simple packaging like this because it feels like you're paying for the juice. It doesn't feel like you're paying for, you know, $100 cap. Okay, now we're going to get into the last three, which this is not in order, by the way. So don't think the last one I'm going to show you is better than the next one I'm going to show you, because I don't know how I would rank this list. That would be damn near impossible. But these last three are some of my favorites. Well, there's so many favorites here, though, but some of my favorites from '85. And this is Derby from Guerlain, one of the greatest masculine fragrances of all time. Interesting fact, if you go look at the vintage, what they call the Eagle bottle, the working name for Derby was called Centurion, which is, you know, the Eagle bottle is almost supposed to look like a Roman's breastplate, a Roman soldier's breastplate. So if you look at it as those notches, look at a vintage Derby bottle, you'll know what I'm talking about. So very interesting take. I did not know that until, you know, reading or listening to Gabe Oppenheim talk about his book, The Ghost Perfumer. He talked about some things that were happening with Guerlain. And apparently, Jean-Paul Guerlain had help creating some of these fragrances, which is a shot to the heart for me, because he was like, he's like a god to me. I mean, he's like, you know, somebody who created some of my favorite fragrances of all time. He created Habit Rouge. He created this. He created Samsara. He created Coriolan. Heritage. Oh, God, Heritage. But this is up there with my favorite Guerlains of all time. So this is somewhere in between the vintage Eagle bottle and the more modern bottle with the square. I don't know why I do this every time. Like, I'm drawing the square for you. The square wood around the bottle, Les Parisiens or whatever they called it. I like those bottles too, by the way. Those were very classy and elegant. And Thierry Vasseur did a great job reformulating Derby. But now that it's officially discontinued, I am going to baby and cherish every single drop of this juice. This is a vintage during, still you can see the 5-digit batch code right now. And this is a Chiffre. But the thing about this fragrance that really blows me away, and I've said this before, but when you look at the notes, you know, you hear oak moss, you hear leather, patchouli, vetiver, artemisia, nutmeg, old school notes. You think this is going to be a beast. This is going to be something that I have to wear in winter. No, this is an all year round fragrance for me. I'll wear this in summer. I don't care. You know, it has this airiness to it. It just, it goes with you. It tends to move up during the cold weather. It just projects beautifully. During the summer weather, it doesn't get cloying. It's just, it's one of the best made masculines of all time. There is apparently a mint note. Don't think mint like Geranium Pour Monsieur or anything like that. This is maybe just to add a little bit of roundness. I don't know. I don't get very much mint, to be honest with you, but beautiful fragrance, beautiful composition. You know, I've said this before, but if you're going to a boardroom, if you're going to meet with the CEO, if you want to be the boss, if you are the boss, this is what you wear. This is a boss scent, out and out. No nonsense. This is a no nonsense scent. This is a man who, when he speaks, everyone listens, and he means business. He chooses his words wisely. He doesn't, you know, speak just to speak. He speaks with meaning and purpose. That's what I get from Derby. Okay, now we're going to go on to another Pierre Bourdon, and if you knew what was coming, you know. This is Green Irish Tweed. Now, this is a vintage in the 4-ounce, 120 ml bottle, which is discontinued now. They only do 50 and 100 mLs. There's the batch code right now. Let's see. Can you see it? I'll read it to you. Batch code is 14A01. So it's a 2014 bottle, and they still had the fire hose atomizer back then. This is one of my favorite atomizers of all time because it just drenched you with juice. Absolutely drenched you with juice. And Green Irish Tweed is the granddaddy of Cool Water, which is one of the best-selling masculine fragrances of all time. As you can see, I need to get a haircut, but working from home, I've been a little bit lazy. And this has this beautiful, this is great for spring. This is this lemon verbena, iris, violet leaf, and then that smooth creed ambergris with sandalwood. The newer bottles don't have the ambergris. The sandalwood feels more synthetic. If you can find 120 ml, the old 4-ounce bottle, or a 75 ml, get it. This is just, to me, I like this better than Cool Water because Creed did used to use great ingredients. You notice I say used to use great ingredients. And it still kind of pisses me off when I look on Fragrantica and see Olivier Creed as the perfumer. No offense, don't sue me, Creed. I think it's well known that Pierre Bourdon is the perfumer. Can we make the change now? Please. Just for the sanity of people like me who, I just want the truth, you know? I just want fairness to reign. And seeing Olivier Creed as the perfumer, it bothers me. Even if it doesn't bother Pierre Bourdon, it bothers me. So there you go. Take that with a grain of salt. Okay, now we're going to move on to one of my favorite fragrances of all time. I've talked about this fragrance ad nauseum. It made my best honey scents of all time. So we got two honey bangers here. Kuros with the honey, which, God, Kuros. God. My God. Okay. And then, Boss number 1, 1985, Brilliance. Here's one that doesn't say number 1, and here's one that does. So this is unsprayed. Apparently they are very similar, okay? Because they both are Eurocos, London, Giorgio Beverly Hills. Yeah, they're both Giorgio Beverly Hills. They're both made in the UK. The difference is that this says number 1 right here, which means it's a little bit newer, and this one doesn't. So I'm thinking because air has been let into the bottle. Look at the color juice difference. So there's no air that's been let into this bottle. But I hear that they are very, very similar. But if you can find one that doesn't say number 1 on it, you know it's an older bottle. So you know you're getting the good stuff. And this fragrance, my God. I mean, Pierre Wargnier created one of the greatest masculine fragrances of all time with this, my opinion, because it has a little bit of everything. It has that, you know, animalic honey in the opening. Some people say this smells a bit like a urinal cake. I don't get that for Koros. Some people say this has a bit of a men's restroom vibe in the opening. I get what they're saying. I get what they're saying with both of them, but I don't get that. I just get this beautiful animalic honey with lovely note of tobacco that comes in the dry down. It's so masculine. It's so classy. It's so... This is another one that just kind of moves with you. It can move up in the colder weather. It can move down in the warmer weather. I usually wear this more in the winter, but I'm starting to become season agnostic, if you will. I really don't care. I'll wear what I want when I want, and let the chips fall where they may. So I'm so glad that Anouge found me a 125 ml unsprayed tester. By the way, just as a side note, Jonathan and I were talking, and he said he doesn't have this fragrance, and I found him on Mercari a 50 ml splash that had about 60% left in it for $23. So they're out there, and it was the no #1 on it. So the guy didn't know what he had, obviously. Sometimes you find those deals. I was going to grab it as a third backup, but I said, let me do the honorable thing here since Jonathan doesn't have a bottle and tell him about it. But if he didn't grab it, I was gonna, because that is a steal. So anyways, stuff like that can be had. You don't have to pay hundreds of dollars. You know, I think I paid less than the price listed on, look at this sticker on the back before barcodes. I love this stuff. And, you know, I think I paid less than this when I bought this off of the person who was selling it initially. So that's 1985 in a nutshell, less than 45 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there's other fragrances from 85 that I missed that I should try. Let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances. I love interacting with you. I love seeing your faces, as Eugene is prone to say. I love seeing your faces in the comment, and I learn more from you guys than you guys do from me, trust me. So please interact. That's my favorite part of this. If I was a real YouTuber, I would say give it a like and a thumbs up, but you know, it's kind of, Rich Mitch said it the best the other day. He said, a like is appreciated, but I'll never ask for it. So there you go. So cheers, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.